Welcome to Body of Light, Episode 3, featuring Amrita Baba. Amrita Baba is a unique blend of Tantric Hindu yogas and Tantric Buddhism, specifically in the Babaji lineage and the Padmasambhava Vajrayana lineages. He has a lot of knowledge and experience Vajrayana Buddhism, Zen, other forms of Tantric Hindu yogas. It was a great pleasure to interview him and talk with him. His knowledge about this topic is very vast, and he has a very interesting, dynamic, groundbreaking community and system of practice that he has received, transmitted, and developed. So please enjoy. Amrita Baba. All right, so here we are with Amrita Baba. Thank you for being here, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So for people who are unfamiliar with you and what you have to offer and your background, can you give a little bit about when you first came across Rainbow Body or Light Body in your own experience, and give a little background about who you are and what you offer, please.
So yes, I'm an independent teacher of Tantric yoga, not sexual, but Tantric yoga, mantric practices that I combine in my work two different lineages, so Buddhist Tantra and Hindu Tantra. And this method that I've created over the last, I've been teaching professionally now for almost 16 years. So the method is called Amrita Mandala. And, we have the Sangha, the community is worldwide, but I live in Europe, I'm European, I'm from Finland. So most of our activities are here in Europe, scattered in different countries, but also a little bit activities are starting in US, America, and actually also in South America. When did I first hear about light body? I started practicing full time 21 years ago. And I remember reading some books like Tibetan Buddhist books. Oh yes, it was probably a Tibetan book of living and dying, where it was mentioned first, and it didn't, if I remember correctly, it didn't actually explain what it was, just a brief mention of it. But I just remember the feeling, the energy that came with it. It was like bells ringing big time. And back then I had started formally practicing Zen Buddhism, so Japanese Zen Buddhism, and they don't have light body or rainbow body. When I speak of, I use the terms rainbow body and light body alternatively. So but they don't have it. So I spent a number of years in Zen Buddhism practicing in that way, and they really, their focus with practice is of course emptiness, shunyata, which means in common language, in a bit more easier terms, means selflessness of all phenomena or mental emotional phenomena. So I spent a number of years in Zen Buddhism, and then I very strongly felt that it was time for me to find some method that worked better for me. And then I found my way to Southern Shaiva Tantra. So I had a teacher, American teacher, guru, female guru, who had a lineage in that, and she later asked me to teach. I also have a Zen lineage. My master asked me to teach, but I have never taught Zen formally. So I started with Zen Buddhism, and then find my way back to Tantra, where light body, rainbow body is spoken about. So and from then until now, it's been 18 years that I've been focused on figuring out what emptiness is and what light body is, because it seems that these two themes or topics are really like foundational. If you start looking at Vajrayana Buddhism, which is along with Hindu tantric lineages, they are really kind of like established forms of tantra that discuss light body, but there's also the emptiness side of it. So my work the past little over 15 years, when I've done it full time professionally, has been focused on figuring out and explaining to myself, but also explaining to my students, how does this actually practically work, and also like shedding all the baggage and mystification and making it bigger than it actually is, like shedding all that extra baggage. And I've been really blessed. Actually, my path started when I was 3-4 years old. I started having, I wouldn't say mystical experiences because they weren't mystical, but categorically they would be called mystical. But I had visitations of different Mahasiddhas of Buddhist tradition and Hindu tradition, Taoist tradition, a few times a week for many years since I was a child. And then I started judo, martial arts, when I was 7 years old, and I was really fortunate to have a martial arts teacher who knew a little bit about traditional Chinese medicine and also meditation. So he was really enthusiastic about it, and he taught me these basic methods. But that's how it started. So I had these visitations of masters who had attained light body since I was a few years old, and this continued until my teenage years. And then I became interested in yoga, meditation. You know, I'm from a very small mining town from eastern Finland. And I grew up in the 80s. So it's like this forgotten pocket in the world. You know, it's very close to the Russian border, and you know, Finland was always a Western democratic country, but it's kind of this hidden corner. But nevertheless, there in the library, there were some books and what I learned from my judo teacher, and then I had these visions of Mahasiddhas, different Mahasiddhas. So that's how my path started. And when I was a teenager, then I was able to little by little start joining different meditation courses and sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been a long 40 years
Yes.
from then to come to this point when I don't mean to sound arrogant, but there is no mystery to me anymore. I'm still practicing daily. I'm working on it myself, but there is no mystery. Now I know exactly how it works. So, and I'm happy to explain it.
So you said you view rainbow body and light body as interchangeable. I've heard others say that there's I guess, well, I see it as light body is like the tree, and then all the different branches of light body are the different spiritual traditions from around the world that have their own flavor or technique of this same type of experience phenomena happening. Like one branch is the Tibetan's way, and then there's the Hinduism and the Christianity, and then so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Do you see rainbow body and what happens to the Tibetans the same as, like, say, what's happening to yogis in the Himalayas or in India or the early Christianity or what have you?
Right. But I get this question quite regularly, and of course it's a question that I've contemplated myself. But here's how it is. Here's how I see it. So if we look at your body or my body, your mind and my mind, and everybody else's bodies and minds. You know, in Buddhist terminology, they speak of different kayas. Kaya literally means body. But when we speak of bodies, it actually means subtle bodies, which could roughly be, or actually could be translated as different types of minds.
Mm-hmm.
And this means that we have different types of subtle bodies. In my experience, there are three types of bodies we have. One is physical, made of physical matter, flesh and bones. And then we have two different subtle bodies. And actually these two subtle bodies, for example, in Tibetan they speak of Chalung Tigle, which means nadi, prana, bindu in Sanskrit. So with that simple term, Chalung Tigle, nadi, prana, bindu, they already give two different energies they speak about, prana and bindu energy. Mm-hmm. Prana energy and bindu energy. And nadi is just a term for channel. So channel or line or tube. So it has taken me so many years to figure this out. And, you know, of course I've been, you know, I couldn't have done it without my gurus. Absolutely no chance I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. But they've been very kind to give me little pointers and point out that, look at that, you know, meditate on that, work on that. Can you see that? Can you perceive that? Giving me hints and tools and practices. So the two subtle bodies, the way how I explain it in my work is that there is something called meridian field, mm-hmm. field of meridians, and in traditional Chinese medicine, you know, they have a Chinese term that in English is translated as meridian. Maybe there is some better English word for it, but meridians are grossest of the subtle bodies. So meridian channels are inside the physical body space. They don't extend outside. Okay. And yeah, like if you look at the basic explanation of meridians from traditional Chinese medicine, it is actually fascinating that somebody might have a problem with some organ, heart, lungs, kidneys, and they use physical needles on non-physical meridians to heal physical organs. Meridian field, like I call it, like my guru called it, is the grossest of the two subtle bodies, and it's only inside the physical body. That's where most of people's traumas get stored, and also some how should I say, imprints of dualistic delusion, self-delusion are stored there. But it's mostly the storage storage room of traumas. Okay, so meridian field, the first grossest type of subtle body. Then the second one is the body of nadis. And this is what we usually see in spiritual art, like Guru Padmasambhava's picture behind me. You can see rainbow light radiating from him, and in Christian art, in Taoist art, in Buddhist art, Hinduist art, you can see auras painted on saints and deities, having these channels coming from inside the body, from the heart, from the forehead, from the central line of the body extending outwards to the space beyond the skin. So nadis are also channels, but meridians have a grosser feel. It's kind of like they are the energy that flows through them, which in Tibetan system is called bindu energy. It's kind of like honey, like it's thick. My guru called it liquid love. It feels like it's thick liquid. But in nadis, it's thinner. It's not as thick. It's kind of like it's flowing water. You could even say that it's air-like. So, in my experience, nadis are subtler. It's not as gross as meridians. So, back to emptiness and light body. It's the subtle body made of nadis, where how emptiness of all phenomena is realized, through which it is realized. So wisdom, or turning ignorance, self-based ignorance, to wisdom, is what comes from cultivating nadis. And then the light body comes from purifying and opening the meridian field. That's how it works. And the meridian field, just like the example of acupuncture demonstrates, it's like this. So meridian field is right next to the physical body. So sometimes it is difficult to say which sensations, when we have some sensation in practice, or when you're sitting on a couch watching television, it might be difficult to say if that was energetic from meridians or if it was physical, because it's that close. So my understanding through many years of practicing with my gurus and receiving countless transmissions and instructions from them is that when we speak of light body or rainbow body, it means that both the nadi system, the nadi body, needs to be fully open and fully active. In Amrita Mandala we call it 13 bhumis, 13 grounds. Bhumi is like an ancient concept already discussed in Vedas and then also in Buddhist literature, Mahayana and Vajrayana. Bhumis are these grounds. But it really means just layers, different layers in the nadi system, in the aura, and also inside the physical body. So the nadis are inside the physical body and outside in the aura. So that's where wisdom comes from, through seeing the emptiness of phenomena. And then when you have that covered, and also completely open and activate meridians so that there's no trauma in there anymore, that's what light body is, or rainbow body. And depending, you ask about different versions of light body or rainbow body. So I see it in the way that there are slight differences in methods. Just like I don't know if you're familiar, but the highest type of yoga in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism is called Chokchen. And they have different practices for the emptiness body and the light body. And the light body practices are called Tögal. So they have their own practices. Of course, they have literature that explains the theory, explains the view. But then they have certain practices for opening and activating this body of aliveness that they're focusing on, how it comes about. Okay. I don't know actually that much. I think the most secretive tradition of esoteric practices is Russian Orthodox. You know, they have the small rainbow body, shrinking of bodies, in shrinking of body phenomena, as well as disappearing of monks. Yeah, they have. But they also have, I think, they have some slight differences in their method, slight differences in how their methods and practices have been designed. So it is because of these slight differences why the journey, the path to the actual attainment is a bit different. The experiences are different because the practices are slightly different. Just like I said when I started explaining this, that you and me and everybody else has the same subtle bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I use the terms light body and rainbow body to speak of the same thing is because if you open up and activate both subtle bodies and then meridians relating to the physical tissues, you will end up on the same last stop, so to speak.
Same
You end
result.
up with the same result.
Yeah. So different systems, different practices, different teachings based on cultural, based on where they're at in the world, that every road leads to.
I think so, but at the same time, I think that this is something that I've analyzed the past 2, 3 years a lot. What we do in Amrita Mandala as a staple practice is that we not only speak about our experiences, but analyze what happens to us with practice. So we analyze what happens in our own energy bodies, but also in the bodies of others. And so we have like I mentioned Bumis. I've spoken with two different scholars of Tibetan Buddhism about this, and they agreed that at some point in history they practiced energetical analysis, sensing energies and reading energies, and being able to analyze and explain what happens with different energies. Let's take, for example, analyzing Padmasambhava's energy, or feeling, sensing, and analyzing the energy of the holy mountain Kailash, or sensing and analyzing, let's say, for example, Jesus's energy. Or it can be anything. Can be the energy of Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, can be the energy of pilgrimage place, some lineage, some teacher, some guru who is alive or who has passed away a long time ago. But so I had these two Vajrayana scholars say that according to their education, they drew the conclusion that this was practiced before in Tibetan Buddhism. If not widely, then within some close lineages, but that they didn't know that anybody does this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is, like I said, this is a staple practice that we do. Analyzing not only the stages of emptiness meditation through the Bumis, but also the advancement with purification of the meridians, which leads to light body. But when I've done this analysis to, let's say, famous saints and famous teachers, both past and present, it often happens that teachers who become very famous, that they have pure meridian systems, but they don't have the emptiness or wisdom side covered. So they might be somewhere in intermediate stages with wisdom stages, emptiness meditation stages. Or it can be the other way around. Somebody can be very, let's say, relatively far in wisdom practice, but then their meridian systems are still not that pure. But that is very rare that both of those subtle bodies, nadis and meridians, are open and active. But there are a couple of those people alive. So I think that Garchen Rinpoche, I think he's Kagyu mainly, Kagyu Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist.
Yeah.
I think he. I haven't recently read his energy, but I think he has graduated all practices. But also, I have never met Garchen Rinpoche in person. But then there's the Hugging Saint Amma, who I have met a lot.
Yes.
and spend a lot of time in her presence.
Same.
Yeah.
I have as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. You've kind of touched on one of my questions on kind of what's happening inside the body, on what's happening, what we can't see, on what results to a light body, rainbow body. What about what we see as as an outside, as the outside phenomenon, the outside, what the viewer sees happening when this internal process is happening, specifically at death. So with the rainbow body in Tibet, for example, we have the shrinking of the body, where
Yeah.
it either stays shrunken or it shrinks and then disappears, leaving hair, teeth, maybe sometimes nails. Then there's the complete disappearing of the body after the 7 to 8 days, leaving nothing. And then there's something like with Padmasambhava and Yeshi Tsogyal has happened, where they're alive and they don't even have a death experience supposedly, and they have just disappeared. There's other accounts of I've read of where the body's been interrupted during those 7 days, and there's been like beams of light shooting out from them that people have eyewitnessed. There's the smell. There's obviously the rainbows that will appear around the body and in the hut. What do you feel that is all about? What's going on there with that?
Well, it's a fascinating topic, light body in relation to passing away or dying. But it's as fascinating to think of light body during when still alive. But maybe I'll say a few words about that, about the differences in the body completely disappearing, or then hair and nails left behind, or the body shrinking to the size of a baby's body. So, in my understanding, these differences are kind of like stages.
Mm.
So, stages that directly demonstrate the advancement in clearing out the meridian system. So, somebody who has done it, has taken it very far, the body shrinks. Somebody who's taken it farther, nails and hair. Somebody who's completed it can disappear into light. So there are stories of saints and gurus disappearing to light from southern India, from Tibet, from Taoist traditions in China, quite recently in Taoist traditions. I know one case from 1987 from Beijing, where there was a great Taoist monk, Du Xinlin, who disappeared into bright light in the being witnessed by over 100 people, including communist officials, and he just disappeared in front of these people in a like ceremonial hall of a Taoist temple there in 1987. Completely disappeared. So he was quite old. He was 116 years old.
Okay.
So he had done lots of practice, something like 110 years or something like this,
Yeah.
which leads me to your previous question about the whole monastic or lay thing, but we'll come to that later.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's only a question of advancement means familiarization, right? So whether we speak of in the language we use in Amrita Mandala, whether we speak in the language used in Dzogchen Tögal that speaks of four visions, these are only stages of familiarization. And that familiarization is, when we speak of wisdom through emptiness, it can be symbolized by the clarity of diamond. And then with light body, rainbow body, obviously it's rainbow colors, just like here. So different colors, not only clarity, clear diamond, but light energy hitting the diamond that makes rainbows emanate. So there you have the clue again. It's two different subtle bodies, or two functions, you could also say, of the subtle bodies. So I think it's only a matter of degree of familiarization. And what we always familiarize with, what the main topic or theme of yoga practice, yogic practice, dharmic practice is our basic nature. That we have pure and perfect nature. We already have pure and perfect nature, and we are simply revealing it and establishing it. So, when we speak of what rainbow is and how it feels like, it has the energy of softness. When we have diamond and we have the energy of a diamond is that it's kind of like hard light. But when we shift from that to rainbows, then all of a sudden softness comes into the picture and humidity and aliveness. Suddenly we are in the middle of a rainforest. So this wonderful softness. Yeah, so I think it's only familiarization with this aliveness and softness that we're talking about, and these different stages of the body shrinking and nails and hair and or the body completely disappearing is a matter of it. Something that you asked earlier about if it's possible to lay people, or why I just mentioned the example of the Taoist master Dushin Lin from China, who was 116 years old. And I think it is said of him that around the age of 90 he achieved his final stage at the age of 90. But then there are examples from recent history in Tibetan Buddhism where you have some older nun. I remember from 2016, I think, there was photographs of her when she was still alive, and then her body shrunk after she left her body. And I don't know the exact age of her, but in any case, she was maybe 70, 80 years old, having practiced, I think, most of her life. But this is a very good question because, of course, like ancient China and ancient Tibet is a completely different culture and different, different circumstance for practice than 21st century city people.
Yes.
How we live. Well, I think it is possible. We have these same subtle bodies as Padmasambhava had. We have the same subtle bodies. We have the same pure and perfect nature. We have the same nadis and meridians and physical cells. Well, I guess we just have to see how it turns out. There are a number of traditions that teach about light body. So we simply have to see over time how it fits the modern practitioners, modern city practitioners. But I am absolutely certain that there will be completely, fully enlightened lay people, lay practitioners in the West very soon. Yeah.
So you think, yes, it is possible for people who living in the West to reach this same level of realization of enlightenment? Because so much of the people who are having light body or rainbow body experiences, they may be lay people or have families and stuff, even like Dunjun Rinpoche had a family and all these other masters, but they're still in that culture. Like you're saying, they're still in India or Nepal or Tibet, and so many of them that we don't even know about who are in the caves and the mountains having light bodies. So there's so much of this around being a monk or a sadhu or in a yogi. And have you actually, well, moving on to, you have a book called Buddhas Among Us.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's, I believe the rest of the title is fully enlightened, people of the West who are fully enlightened. Can you speak to that? And because I feel like that is right in line with what we're talking about. Um, Speak to that, and what does that mean to you, fully enlightened or completely enlightened?
Well, that's like a topic that has been extensively discussed and debated about our history, because some say it's this and some say no, it's not that. But that book, Buddhas Among Us, it's about a number of members of Amrita Mandala Sangha who have finished their wisdom practices. So they have uh, come to the realization of emptiness of all phenomena. This wisdom side that we were discussing. And so in history there have been those who have said that, okay, well this is fitting definition of what full enlightenment means. But the way how I see it is that if you talk about if we speak of the ultimate full enlightenment, wisdom is the full enlightenment of the mind. But there is more to go to light body. So I actually speak of two different stages of full enlightenment. And that's the first stage. Wisdom is the first stage of it. Light body is the second stage. But after that, there is nothing more because we run out of bodies. Yeah, but there are differences in methods. And of course, if we speak of different traditions and their practices, their methods, they are changed over time. So it is actually, I could perhaps say that it is impossible to find an old tradition that's practices didn't change over time. So change can be for the better, or it can be for the worse, meaning that practices are changed in the way that it loses their power.
In the book, were these all people who have gone through your teachings and courses?
Yeah. Yes, yes, they are my students. Yeah.
So how is it measured, in your view, not fully enlightened or fully enlightened? How is that measured to get that type of a title?
So in the nadi body, in the subtler of the subtle bodies, we all have, this is actually fascinating. We all have the same subtle bodies. We all have the same energy channels and energy centers, nadis and chakras, right? We all have the same ones.
Yes.
And so we have lots of different chakras, not only 7, not only 3 or 5, but we have the whole body space, and the aura space is full of channels, completely full. And inside the body, it's actually kind of on two different layers, because there are both nadis and meridians as well as the physical organs in the same space. But their frequencies are different, so they can inhabit the same space. They don't collide. But it's a continuum, from nadis to meridians to physical cells. It's a continuum that goes both ways, right?
Yes.
But when we speak of wisdom or stages of emptiness meditation, then we are speaking of nadi body. We are not speaking of meridians or, well, it can have some effect on meridians and some effect on physical body. Suddenly, for example, you might have heard of Buddhist meditators who have an awakening experience, and then they notice that they don't have that ache or certain illness anymore through having like an emptiness insight, awakening experience. But the way how we map the stages of emptiness meditation is through the bhumis. And what it means is that this is not some completely abstract concept, but bhumis are related to specific chakras inside the head, inside the body, and outside the body. We speak of 13 bhumis, 13 energetical areas. 13 energetical areas. And in Mahayana Buddhism, they speak of 10 bhumis, 10 bodhisattva bhumis. In Vajrayana, they speak of 13 bhumis, or 16 bhumis, or 21. The number doesn't matter. They are simply like if you have a foot-long measure, you can chop it into 13 bits, or 16 bits, or 21. But the total measure is necessarily the same, because you can't change the subtle body. But the way how progress in emptiness meditation can be mapped is through these subtle bodies. Because the thing is that when Eckhart Tolle had an awakening experience spontaneously, or when you had an awakening experience, or I had, or Ramana Maharishi in India 100 years ago, or some Dalai Lama spoke openly of his first awakening experience, it's the chakra here inside the head behind the eyes that pops open. And it's only this small chakra here, but of course it affects the whole system, because the subtle body is connected. There are lines going all over the place, so it affects the whole system. So whoever one might be, practitioner of any tradition, or somebody awakened spontaneously like Eckhart Tolle did, it's always this opens first. Always. Of course, heavenly experiences in meditation, or experiencing some exalted states, or seeing into realms, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about very specific, what in Buddhism is called emptiness insight, or path moments in Theravada Buddhism, or Kensho in Zen Buddhism. So I'm speaking about very specific experiences, awakening experiences. But when somebody has the first one, it pops the chakra here. Second one, it pops the chakra on the level of eyebrows. And third one, fourth, fifth, sixth on the crown. And after the sixth one, it continues on the energy centers outside the body. It follows a pattern, because our subtle bodies are the same. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't even matter if you don't believe in chakras or think about them, but it follows a pattern.
So these beings in your book have gone through, you have like a teachings or a program or something that takes you through the different bhumis, and these people have gone through them or graduated, as I so to say?
Yes, of course. So the only difference what we do in practice is that, we have practice from Buddhist Tantra, and we have practices from Hindu Tantric side.
Right.
But what we do with our Buddhist Tantric practices are not that different what is done in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. We do certain things very differently. For example, dynamic practices where you vocally shout mantras, mantric syllables. This is done in Tibetan Buddhism, but we do a lot of that. So, when in some traditional system they might shout 3 times or 5 times, we do 300 or 500. And it's, very concentrated, focused, dynamic practices. So what we do is not that different what is done in established lineages, but it's the mapping, I think, that is the main difference. And I look at it very, very, I was educated in the West, went to a normal school, and have basic understanding of the scientific process. So I spent so much time back in the day wanting to, and my motivation in getting awakened and enlightened, but because there was no map, there was no path map, no explanation, no specific instructions, and no detailed explanation where I am at the moment and where that Buddhahood is and what the stages are along the way.
Yes.
I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I said, in ancient Vajrayana, they knew how to do energetical reading, but this art was lost. It takes many years to learn that, have that energetical sensitivity and be able to read the subtle body so that you can see that, okay, this person has 11 bhumis open and 3 bhumis perfected. Or this person has all 13 bhumis open, meaning that that person is constantly, his or her default mode is the natural state, but then might have, let's say, 4 bhumis perfected. So it's only partially, there's still further to go in terms of a realization of emptiness of all phenomena.
Those who have all the boomies perfected or mastered, like, would that result in a rainbow body? And if so, is that like, do you feel that the rainbow body is a byproduct of how one practices or lives? Or is the rainbow, or is the rainbow body a goal? Like there's rainbow, I know you have something called rainbow body yoga.
Yeah,
I feel like you're touching on, right? So do you feel that the rainbow body, to dissolve into light or to have the shrink to, whatever happens, some sort of a light body death experience, is that a goal from a practice and from how one lives, or is that just a byproduct? And if so, why? Like why do some beings aspire to do this? Like what's kind of like what's what's the point? Like why do it?
I think that's another excellent question. And I think that I see it in my students also who finish the whole wisdom side of practice, but some of them are not interested in light body teachings. I
Okay.
think that it is partially a karmic thing. So
Mm.
if you didn't develop an interest to it earlier in your life or in past lives, maybe you're not that interested. But if you have been fortunate to have a connection with the idea, perhaps with some teachings about it, perhaps even met some masters who have had pure bodies in past lives, then it translates us having karma in this life too and developing interest towards it. But I think that what happens at death, it's only a byproduct of the. It's like a demonstration what it is. Having said that, it doesn't necessarily happen at all that something unusual happens for the physical body. This is also an interesting thing. Like, for example, someone who is really dear and beloved to me is Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who passed away 30 something years ago. And in my understanding, he had attained light body, but he left a physical corpse.
Right.
So, so this is also, there's always exceptions to the rule.
Right.
But so I think that what happens at death is kind of like a side note. Something can happen, and many times happens, but it doesn't necessarily, nothing spectacular or unusual happens. But what I was meaning to come back to is how light body feels when still alive in the body. And I said that I think there's at least two individuals who have both emptiness side and meridian side completely purified, Garchen Rinpoche and Hugging Saint Amma. And I haven't met Garchen Rinpoche in person. I hope that I will. But Amma, I have spent lots of time in her physical presence since 2003, so over 20 years, and have been very close to her lots of time. There studying, not only enjoying and just being able to completely let go in her presence, into her energy, but also studying, like analyzing what is going on here. Why is she like that and I'm like this?
Yes.
And then, as years have gone by, I started having awakening experiences, emptiness insight experiences in 2011. And then I started noticing that, okay, now she feels different because there's this change in me. So little by little, the gap between me and her has become smaller. And I'm not saying that I have the capacity. I haven't finished my practice, like I said before, but what I can say from having experienced her presence, as well as having practiced thousands and thousands of hours of Guru Yoga with Padmasambhava, with Ishanath or Jesus, and many other masters, Mahasiddhas, is that the energy is completely different. Even if somebody has finished emptiness meditation, which brings a lot of clarity, like if you're sitting in the room where somebody's emptiness realized, it's kind of like being in the presence of shining diamond. But it's still completely different when that realization, that pure and perfect nature and its energy comes through the physical cells. It's simply a different level. I'm not meaning to somehow aggrandize, make it big and scary,
Right.
but it is simply a whole different gear, kind of like different gear. And it is absolutely beautiful how it is. Completely beautiful. The energy radiates in a way that it doesn't from other people. Something I noticed about Amma many years ago is that when she's there in the middle of 200 people, it's like the light bends from her body in a different way that it bends from other people, like the physical light. It looks like her body has a different contrast that other people's bodies have. She kind of like pops out
Yes.
from among those 200 people. And this is simply because when both nadis and meridians, when they open up, which can happen momentarily, by the way, in an experience called cessation, which is widely discussed in both Buddhism and Hinduism. So, the energy is just unobstructed. In our bodies, it is obstructed. We have traumas, we have ignorance, misconceptions. So we have prana flows into our system just like it does in the body of somebody who has light body. But because of these distortions, it gets interpreted in a different way. But somebody who's pure, it just flows unimpeded. And that's very beautiful. And this has consequences on the body. Samsaric beings, we need to sleep. But somebody who has pure, subtle bodies, the relationship to sleep changes. It also changes to biological needs, procreation, sex, needing to go to toilet, needing to eat, drink. So these are basic bodily siddhis that, the relationship with those things, physical things, biological things, changes when we pop into pure body. Yeah, but when I said that we can momentarily feel the cessation of the mind ceasing, widely discussed in Buddhist literature, but also the body, the meridian system ceasing. When both happen at the same time, we can have the actual experience how it feels to be in light body, how it feels to be, fully enlightened. This is cessation experience, nirodha, it's called in Buddhist terminology. So cessations are, whether working with wisdom emptiness or purifying meridians, it's essential to have. It's kind of like a cessation in the mind means that you have an awakening experience. And not only one of them, but many, like we discussed. So, same with meridians. We can have cessations of the trauma matter and then experienced, that pure and perfect flow of energy.
I have a theory that if we, as beings with karma and the idea of living many, many, many thousands of lifetimes in a body, if we didn't have all this trauma and from religion or childhood or past lives and all these maybe ignorant or harming belief systems and unhealthiness piled onto us, that we would all have a light body death experience or a light body experience, and that it's the things that are kind of like you were saying, this is our intrinsic nature, like this is who we are. There's nothing we actually have to do to be it. We are it, but there's these things that are blocking it in a way. So I have a theory that everyone would just die like this into a rainbow and into light if we didn't have all of these baggages of these different categories of things.
Exactly so. Yeah. But unfortunately, this is a samsaric realm, like it's categorized in basic Buddhism. It's a samsaric realm, which means that the vast majority of beings on this planet in physical form have that baggage, have that weight on their shoulders. So that's why, individuals who are not even in complete full enlightenment, but somewhere on the way, are very rare.
Do you know any Westerners, people like you and I, whether they're practitioners or not, do you know any people who have had a rainbow light body death experience or are probably going to have it based on their attunement? Do you know any cases or anyone that, not just lay people, but like people who live in America or in Europe?
No, I don't know.
No.
I don't know. But this will change. This will change very, very soon.
You think so?
Yes.
So what would do you have your systems, you have this rainbow body yoga, you have these bhumi practices. Would you say that this is a recipe, a practice to get to this type of level? Is that kind of the intention base? Because the focus of this film is, what is our way? What is the Westerners' way? Who aren't sitting in the caves, who aren't doing the 3-year dark retreats and the monastery, like what is our way of getting to this same level of realization and love and wisdom and compassion?
Well, that exactly has been the question of my whole career of
Beautiful.
many years ago I was asked by one of my gurus that, okay, it is your job, it is Baba, my spiritual name is Baba.
Yeah.
So it is your job to collect the bits and little bits of wisdom practices and put them together as a method that modern people can follow and practice. And that's what I've done. And the way how I've done it is without any secrecy, without any, like many of the practices that we do have been openly explained in my books that are free of charge. So this is the nature how I wanted to do my work, because like His Holiness the Dalai Lama also has said that the time of secrecy is over. So there needs to be openness. And so my whole career of putting together this method from different, I've studied with so many physical living teachers, but also so many non-physical siddhas and mahasiddhas. And it's because of the guidance and transmissions that I've received non-physically, which is really the foundation of what I do and what I teach and the empowerments that I give. Without that bit, I couldn't have done at all what I've done. But to support that, I trained and studied in Japan. I've trained and studied all over the Europe. I have trained and studied in India with many teachers. So lots of, like my guru said, lots of bits of information that have taken me a lot of time and practice to understand what the underlying principles are. So not only techniques from here and there, but to understand what the underlying principles are. And, of course I teach techniques. I'm a teacher of tantric yoga, and in all forms of tantric yoga there are lots of different practices, lots of techniques. But it is also necessary to understand the underlying principles. Like, for example, the Buddha bodies, the different kayas. Because if you don't understand how the techniques, practices relate to kayas, if you don't have a path map also, then you kind of don't know how it all works. And you need to understand. Only when you understand all these ins and outs, then can full enlightenment become a possibility in a single lifetime. So tantric yoga is kind of tricky in the sense that you need to have lots of technical information, but also the heart and soul of any tantric path, certainly the one that I teach, is the heart and love and devotion. So not only that you have lots of technical details figured out and you're kind of like an engineer, but your heart, you need to have love and first and foremost compassion towards all beings. All beings need to be on board. If that is not there, if bodhicitta is not there, you won't get anywhere with those. No matter how high those practices are, you won't get very far. But yes, to answer your question, that's exactly why Amrita Mandala, like we call it, Amrita means it refers to immortality or light body. Amrit means negation of death. So, and Mandala means like a sphere of influence. So that's the name of the method that I teach, and it's specifically for the purpose of having a method that doesn't need to be practiced in long retreats, in a retreat hut or in a cave, but that it brings both types of enlightenment, emptiness, wisdom enlightenment, and light body enlightenment available to lay people. But of course, you cannot remove practice and devoted, committed practice. You can never remove that. But, my students are all lay people, men and women from 25 to 75 years old, from all walks of life, and the signs of successful practice are there.
What would those be? What would those be?
Remember, path map, different stages, reading energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the signs.
From your point of view, right?
Well, this is for us to have that discussion.
Yeah.
And I've had this discussion, exactly the same response from so many people over the years. So if we want to have a path map that is not based on concepts and verbal descriptions, but it is based on the actual experiences that creates shifts of energy in the subtle body. To understand it, you have to understand the basic theory, how it works,
Yes.
what the moving bits are, and then you have to have some experience. Okay, I've had, let's say, somebody hypothetically has done some retreats, and over the years have had 3 shifts, 3 awakening experiences. And that person knows that, okay, over the years I've had 3 experiences, one 4 years ago, then second last year, and now last month. And this has made such an impact in my mind. I simply don't feel and don't perceive the same way as I used to 4 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so there is some shift. That is an energetic shift.
Yes.
But to take it all the way and to understand, like I said, to have a path map that explains the path from the unawakened state to fully enlightened state, you have to have very specific understanding and information and ability to follow those stages by sensing them energetically. That's the key. But it takes a number of years to develop that sensitivity. But this is universal.
Yeah.
This is universal.
From what I'm hearing you saying is you've created a map, a practice, a system that isn't just made up out of nowhere. It's made up from teachings and what you've experienced and things that have worked from other systems, say like Tantric Buddhism, and have developed it in a way suited for Westerners, so that you can then you map out where people are, say from not awake to fully enlightened, based on not just your own, oh yeah, check, they've done this, but it's based on these other systems and other people who have attained the same level of realization, and comparing it basically, and then based on what you see and what you feel from that person. Is this kind of,
Yeah.
is this okay?
Yes, but I didn't develop it. I received this teaching from my guru.
Who was that?
It's I have a picture of him here. I'm sitting next to my altar,
Yes.
and it's not that great drawing, but this is a very famous southern Shaiva guru called Tirumular. Tirumular is one of the main siddhas connected with light body phenomena in Shaiva tradition. So Tirumular was the one who taught me the 13 bhumis, and it was only later when I realized that, okay, so these 13 bhumis are discussed in Vajrayana Buddhism. Yeah, it is fascinating how Hindu Tantric Siddhas, how they overlap Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism. Tirumular was the one who taught me it, and it was only later on when I realized, I immediately understood that this is directly related to the subtle body of any human being. And that's why it's universal path map. But it was only a little bit later when I realized that in Buddhism there are actually extensive literature of bhumis. The reason why I know at this point that the 13 bhumi model, 13 bhumi map is universal, because over the last 10 years I've seen a few hundred people have awakening experiences. We have a certain practice in our lineage for opening the first bhumi. The technique for that is called two-part formula. It's freely in the internet. To this date, I have had 20 students who have gone through the 13 bhumis, opening them which means having 13 consecutive awakening experiences first, major awakening experiences, which each one of them has like a impact, lasting impact on the person's mind in their daily life. So I'm most familiar with accounts where masters explain having consecutive awakening experience from Zen Buddhism. Zen master Hakuin, for example, said that, I forgot the numbers, but he said that he had so and so many major awakening experiences that had a lasting impact, and then many smaller ones, smaller awakenings, smaller shifts. To summarize, I've worked with so many people over the last 15 years that at this point I am completely certain that this is universal and that anybody can have the exact same experiences if they have practices that are really focused on awakening experiences, or bhumi events like we call them. And also it's the same is possible for when working with meridians, which leads to light body. So there's enough work done in our community that I'm certain of this. This is not a claim. Anybody can look into that material. Yeah. My book Light Body is coming out soon. I just have to finish it. Yeah.
Do you feel that, and you've touched on this a little bit, that the beings like Padmasambhava and these other realized Mahasiddhas and saints that do have some sort of a light body experience that do disappear, do you feel that they are human? They are the same as us? Or do you feel that they're not? There's accounts of stories of Yeshua being half human, half Arcturian, half galactic being, there's all these different accounts. What's your thought on that?
I think that we are exactly the same. And this is something that is, often when especially when these masters who are known by millions and billions of people, it somehow gets completely out of hand how they are talked about and how they are understood, completely out of hand. So they have been just like us. Their sufferings and their confusions and traumas haven't been any different. Of course, 2,000 years ago or 1,000 years ago in Galilee or Tibet or China, it's completely different culture, and this might affect, for example, how they have been traumatized in comparison to how we are traumatized today. But it's the same subtle bodies, it's the same mechanisms, and it's more or less the same practices that they did. Why did they practice? Because they suffered. They were confused who they are, what their purpose was, and then somehow, because of their good karmic connections, they learned about this basic nature, basic pure nature, and then something a light bulb went on in their heads, and they said that that's what I want. So they became practitioners and then succeeded in their practice by associating with great teachers themselves and became masters and gurus and mahasiddhas. So my experience you mentioned Isha, Jesus, and Padmasambhava, and I was showing you a picture of Tirumular and so many others who I worked closely with over the years. They are just like us. They still are, even if they don't have physical bodies. But one thing that happens here in samsara is that, especially as decades go by, we get fixated with physical form, and we get fixated with sensing life through our physical senses. Often people, when they are children, they have some mystical or non-physical perceptions. right? But we get fixated. And in my experience, Guru Yoga, inviting the blessings of masters and Mahasiddhas, Padmasambhava, or they do this widely in Christianity by inviting Jesus' blessings. When you do that enough, and when you do that in circumstances when you have enough like peaceful circumstances, then those getting fixated with five senses, it crumbles away. So this happens to a lot of people on retreats, that they start perceiving things that they didn't perceive before, and it can be scary to if you don't know that this could happen, but this is the bread and butter of the whole meditative path. Because if we are stuck with just perceiving the physical body, and we never suddenly see our lineage gurus, or the main guru, or their pure lands, or Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, if we never see them directly, non-physically, then I think there is something missing with practice. And I don't mean that mystical visions and experiences are everything there is, but this is very much part of the yogic path. And what I'm suggesting is that, and what has been extensively said by so many masters for centuries, they have always said that, even some Zen masters have said this, that, when I die, when I'm no longer with you, please invite me to you. Call me for my blessings and I will immediately be there. They have, so many Mahasiddhas have said this over centuries, but very few people know how to do that properly. Somebody might be repeating Jesus' prayer, somebody might be repeating the 7-line mantra of Guru Rinpoche, somebody might be repeating some other Mahasiddha's mantra without ever understanding or knowing that, okay, now I've made the invitation, and now I can just receive the blessings and feel it. This is so important. And the reason why I mention this in this connection is that we can directly invite great masters who have attained light body and just feel it firsthand, what it feels like to be in the presence of such a master. It's a no-brainer. When you start doing that, when you understand that this can be done by anyone, anywhere, you don't have to be a special person to do this. You don't have to get a special empowerment to invite Padmasambhava to bless you. Then something important falls into place there. And then you just keep inviting, you keep watering the ground that you establish. This is very important. This is essential.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share on anything we talked about, or any final words here that you'd like to share?
Yes. So the recent history of the world, there is actually a traditional ancient theory of different time eras or periods. In Buddhism, they have a term for that, and on the Hindu side of astrology, they speak of yugas, these different periods, like long periods of time. So we're in the middle of a so-called dark era, dark time, and I feel personally very strongly that the reason why I wanted to do my work very openly is because the time is running out. As we know from what we can see when we walk out the door, there are all kinds of harmful, not beneficial changes happening in the world, and there is so many billions of people and just a number of people increasing. So I think that it is important to help as many we can through Dharma, through yoga, through meditation. Doesn't matter. Maybe it's simple mindfulness that helps people to bring sanity and sobriety and in that way peace into their lives. Perfect. But when we look at from a bit more deeper perspective, my impression is that many Mahasiddhas, like Jesus 2000 years ago, Padmasambhava about 1000 years ago, Ramalinga in 19th century, and so many others in Taoist tradition everywhere in the world, they have been trying to communicate what is possible for us for so long. But I think there is some kind of ripening happening as we speak because of this internet. And so it hasn't been except like last 20 years or so when internet has come about and sharing of information and knowledge and practices and all these things has become possible. So I know that masters have tried to bring light body teachings and very open Dharma teachings for a long time, but there hasn't been a way to really support that. And it is simply my prayer and my wish that this information gets out there to as many people as possible, so that those who are ready to do practices and understand that we have the same potential as Padmasambhava or other light body masters have. We have it already.
Yes.
We don't need to do anything to gain that potential. We only need to have practices and engage in methods that help us to reveal it, help to reveal the original body of light. So it is my hope that many are successful in doing that, and that this will have an impact on the world. Because like I said, when somebody meets, like we know from Amma's example, there are so many people who didn't know anything about Indian spirituality or weren't interested in any of it. But when they came into her presence, suddenly whatever was going on here, whatever hurt was going on here, came to a full halt, full stop. And their lives changed just like that. So this is my wish and prayer, that there will be so many Westerners who are successful in this practice and then become examples for others. And that there will be a ripple effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it is.
So thank you for having me. It's been pleasure. Yeah.
Energy, there ain't nobody, illusory, transformed to rainbow body, clear light shining, calmly abiding, great perfection, rainbow.